Welcome to The Derby Difference, the podcast where we celebrate people whose passion and purpose shape life at Derby Academy. Today's guest quite literally lives on the stage. Shawn Verrier, Derby's theater director, is an actor, director, and educator whose journey has taken him from Emerson College's elite musical theater program to New York City's legendary drama bookshop to off-Broadway stages, immersive Shakespeare productions, and even a New York City Times Critics' Pick one-man show. You're going to have to explain to me what that means.
Yeah, definitely.
What was meant to be a short stop at Derby turned into something much more meaningful. For over 2 decades, Shawn has poured his creativity into Derby's theater program and our summer arts program, inspiring generations of students through imaginary play, performance, and storytelling. Today, we'll talk about his journey. We'll talk about his professional theater world, the transformative power of drama, and why Derby became the place he chose to call home. Shawn,
Yes.
welcome to the show. It's been a long time coming. I'm happy we finally got to sit down and have this conversation.
No, I'm so excited.
You excited to be
Yeah,
here?
absolutely.
All right. Now, the first question all of my listeners, thousands of listeners, want to know is, are you a fan of The Derby Difference? Have you listened to any of the podcasts?
Oh, absolutely.
All of them.
And I told you have an amazing, amazing radio voice.
Thank you. I
Yes.
appreciate that. So welcome to The Derby Difference. We're excited to have you. When did you first fall in love with theater?
I suppose I've always really loved performing from my parents' living room when I did little shows at Thanksgiving. But I think perhaps when I first fell in love with theater was when I first heard the recording of Phantom of the Opera. And I listened to the CD over and over and over again. My parents went to see the show, brought back the CD, and I just listened to it on loop and would do pretty much the entirety of the show in the living room for them. And even to the point where I hung a fake chandelier up in the ceiling and kind of let it crash down. But that was at 5 years old, I had always loved to perform in front of my family. So I've always loved to perform. I think it's just been a part of me forever. Even when I got, at 3 years old, I got a little karaoke machine and would just sing around the house. So it's always been a love of mine.
Amazing. So you were a part of a small selective musical theater group at Emerson College. What did that experience teach you about acting, about performing? And tell me a little bit about Emerson College for you.
It was pretty rigorous. It felt sort of like a conservatory program. So we would spend sort of our mornings in academic classes, and then the rest of the day was fully committed to performance, whether that be a scene study class or whether we be rehearsing for a show or a vocal class. We had to do, in my senior year, we had to do one-person cabarets in which we told a story through song, and each one of us had to perform in front of our peers. It was an incredible experience. There was only 14 of us in the class. It was a little nerve-wracking in moments because we had to re-audition for the program our sophomore year. So once we got into the program, they had nationwide auditions for the program. They admitted 25 kids into the program, and then they cut us down to 14 kids after our sophomore year. So it was a little,
That's a lot.
yeah, there was a competition between us, and we were really close. I mean, we were always in the same room together, always. And it was an amazing way to get to know other people's crafts. And it's because we knew each other so well, we knew how to help each other, and the professors there were top notch.
Yeah.
So it was an incredible experience. And it was really the moment that I was surrounded by people that were incredibly talented. And I wanted to strive to up my game as far as that went too. Some of the most talented people I've ever met were in my program and in the program in general. 2 people from, I think, 2 years younger than me wrote the score and the script for Death Becomes Her, which is now on Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all working now, which is kind of cool to see my friends now working in the profession.
Yeah.
So
was it more nerve-wracking performing in front of those, 13 other people in the program, or more nerve-wracking performing in front of, 2,000 people that maybe you didn't know?
Well, it's similar to my experience right now doing this podcast because
Thousands of
I
people
mean,
listening. Yeah.
it's not even thousands of people, but it's a different arena. When you're on a stage, you're immersed in the story.
Yeah.
You're totally in the character. But when you're in front of your peers doing sort of this audition piece,
Yeah.
it's very intimate. It's you have to jump into it right away.
Yeah.
When you're in a play, you get to latch onto a character and kind of follow their trajectory through it. And the lights are on you. You can't really see them. You're connecting to your scene partners. This is more personal.
Yeah.
So I think that's the muscle I really worked in there. How to audition properly. How to just lean on yourself in a moment.
Cool. After college, you moved to New York
Mm-hmm.
and worked at the iconic drama book shop.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about that. What's the drama book shop and why was it so meaningful to you?
When I moved to New York, I had this fantasy of that's sort of the old New York, this Bob Dylan kind of the cool poetry, the art center of the world. And what's happened over time, I think, since then, it's become really commercial. So there weren't a lot of mom and pop shops still left in New York City, especially bookshops. A lot of them are Barnes and Nobles or big corporations.
Sure.
And this was one of the last standing institutions in the city. So I was really lucky because one of my friends from college was a manager there and kind of scooped me into the job. It was a pretty rugged kind of environment. There was like overstuffed chairs and it was really warm in there, and there was a theater company upstairs called the Story Pirates. It was a kids theater company. Bowen Yang was part of the theater company, and Matt Rogers upstairs, so they were kind of all over the place. And actually Lin-Manuel wrote In the Heights in this little black box space in the basement, and it was your feet sticking to the floor sort of a situation, and the lights were just flick on lights. It wasn't this really charming space, but it was because it was such a center. You saw celebrities kind of walk through this worn, torn bookshop in the city, and we had the largest collection of theater books in the world.
Amazing.
So it's how I got to learn my breadth of knowledge of plays, was because someone would come up to you and say, hey, I need a monologue. I need a funny monologue for someone between the ages of 25 and 40.
Yeah.
And I had to come up with something off the top of my head. I needed to know the inventory.
Yeah.
And not to mention, we got to see everything because we got free tickets for shows because of the institution. And while I was there, we got a Tony Award. So it was it was a really cool place to work.
Yeah.
And a lot of my colleagues were former directors or current actors. It was an incredible place.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So all these cool experiences, and you're at Derby, right? And so you started at Derby and you thought this would be a pretty quick stop. So what changed? Why did you decide to stay here?
Well, I moved back from New York back home just to be with my family for what I felt was going to be a little while. And I started working as a parasub in Hingham. And I think that's where I really started to fall in love with teaching. I felt like this was kind of my calling then. I was part of the summer arts program for, now it's 23 years, but then it was probably about 15 years. So even when I was living in New York, I came home and worked at the summer arts program because it was really important to me. And so the job opened up. After a year of parasubbing in Hingham, the job opened up. It sort of felt serendipitous. And I kind of fell into this job at Derby as the theater director, and I was taken by it immediately. It was the combination of being in a classroom and doing what I loved with kids. And this is my favorite age group to work with. So
Mine too. It's not so cool like the high school kids, but you can still work with them in a really professional type of way, right?
Exactly. And also, I think the middle school age is an uncomfortable time, and to be able to throw yourself on stage and be vulnerable in a space, and to be supported and cheered on by your peers, that's the kind of environment that I wanted to cultivate here. And I hope that that's kind of where it's gone.
It certainly has. Yeah.
Yeah. Making theater feel cool. And because I can go back to when I was in middle school and the discomfort of being that age and not being able to find a space that felt really at home for me. So I wanted to provide that for kids here.
What have you discovered about Derby students that has made you stay at Derby for so long?
There's many things. First and foremost is just the sheer talent. I mean, there's so many talented individuals here. That's first and foremost. But more than that, it's a culture that had already started before I got here, where a lot of students choose to come to the school, I think, because of the arts programs. And it was important that at this it still is important at the school. They prioritize the arts, and I felt really supported by the administration, and I was walking into a situation where the kids really valued theater as well.
Yeah, wonderful. How does teaching theater at the middle school level compare to performing professionally?
There's a couple of things. I think first and foremost, for me, actually working with middle school age kids works a muscle in my performance life as well, because I have to be super specific with them as far as where they're going on stage and how they're supposed to feel in a moment. It's made me deepen my specificity as an actor because they're just trying this out for the first time.
Right.
And a lot of them haven't experienced a sadness that a character has to portray or a joy that a character has. Probably joy, but
Hopefully joy.
hopefully joy. But the depth of
Right.
what a character has to feel, so you have to give them a backstory and try to explain that to them. It makes you as an actor have to go back into yourself and say, have I done the work? Have I really been super specific about what this character is going through? So I think as an actor, I've just grown and blossomed because of the specificity work that I have to do here with these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a famous quote, if you do it, that's great. But if you can teach it, that's when you truly become an expert, right?
Yeah.
And I think being an actor, that's one thing. But if you can teach kids how to act, teach kids how to portray that deep sorrow that they've never experienced,
Yeah.
that's when you know you're an expert. So you're an expert, buddy.
Cool.
Way to go.
Yeah, thank you.
So you mentioned a few minutes ago that you have been a part of the Derby Summer Arts Program for 23 years now?
Yeah, it's about 23 years. Yeah.
Amazing. What has it been like working for Derby over that period of time? What is it like watching students grow? Maybe what are the differences between 23 years ago and now?
I always felt like the summer arts program was a mecca for performers, and I always knew that that program was incredibly special. I feel like the campus turns into this whole different energy in the summer. There's artists that are working artists, there's clay makers, there's quilters, there's professionals that work in film. They're just all coming in, and it's a really heightened artistic environment. So that I don't know necessarily if I've seen a drastic change over the years. I always felt like this was an important program, and it still is an important program. So it's always kind of felt like home.
Yeah.
It's always felt like a place where I could explore. And I think as far as my work, I've been allowed to evolve as an artist, because when I take a script that is well known, I like to flip it on its head and take it and look at it through a different lens. And I've always been given the creative freedom to do that. When Thalia McMillian was here, she supported that 100%. And even now, I'm able to do the work that I wanted to do, and it's a transport of what I learned in New York when I saw off-Broadway shows, when I saw someone take a show and just completely flip it on its head. So that's the kind of work that I love to do. And it makes students think outside the box.
Yeah. And it's so fun. And if anybody is thinking about doing Derby Summer Camp, Shawn and the crew are still there. It's this amazing program. And if your kid is even just a little bit interested in art, put them in the program and watch them flourish. I've seen my little 9-year-old. She is so excited about coming to the summer program because she loves art, and it has taken her love of art to the next level. It's really incredible what you and the other teachers of the summer program have done. It's really cool.
And it seeps into the school year. Two sort of talk to each other. So I think that's another reason why Derby kind of enticed me the school year.
So tell me a little bit about, so speaking of bleeding into the school year, right now you're in the middle of producing Alice in Wonderland and then Bad Auditions by Bad Actors.
Exactly.
I talked to Emma Golding about that a few episodes ago.
Yep.
She was so excited about just
amazing.
starting that production. Tell me about Alice in Wonderland so far. How's it going? And then tell me about Bad Auditions by Bad Actors. What's exciting about these two programs? How are they the same? How are they different?
Alice in Wonderland, we were able to sort of run through the first half of the show today without stopping. And as it's coming together, it is looking like an incredible production. We're kind of looking at it through a different lens in that we're transporting. Wonderland feels like a carnival. So
Cool.
the ensemble has sort of this jester sort of, and they exist throughout the entire show. They help tell the story, but they look like these jesters, these black and white sort of jesters. And then there's these pops of colors that happen throughout it. But every set piece that comes on looks like a ride. So you feel like you're transported to this carnival, like just out of a kid's imagination.
Incredible.
So the vocal prowess, the acting work that's happening in the room is really, you can see how far we've come over the last couple of years in developing these skill sets, and it's totally evident in this production. So I can't wait to show it off.
Nice.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Mhm.
And so bad auditions by bad actors. Tell me a little bit about that, because that's not a play that maybe most people are familiar with.
It's a one-act play, and it's part of our sports option for students. So instead of playing a typical sport, which would be basketball in this winter season, the kids can elect to choose. I have my
you got the
t-shirt
shirt.
on
You're
today.
ripping. Yeah. Love
We
it.
got our sports shirts.
Yeah.
And I think that it is sort of aligned with the sport because it does take mind power. Obviously, you have to memorize the lines, but it's also physical. And I specifically chose a show that had a lot of physicality. And it's athletic. It is community theater producing Romeo and Juliet, and every actor that comes in is horrendous. So it's very SNL-like,
Yeah.
and each actor plays two different characters, two contrasting characters. So they'll come on and exit and change their costumes completely and then come on as a totally different person. It's really heightened. It's really exciting, and the kids are super driven.
Awesome.
So
Really
it's
looking
gonna be a
forward
good
to that.
one. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, that'll be great. What makes Derby's theater program unique?
I think what makes our program unique is the innovation piece, the wanting to think outside the box. By the kids and by the adults that are working on the productions, we come together in these production meetings and discuss how we want to look at this and how we want to take this. But the kids have a lot of feedback and they have a lot of involvement in what that process looks like. This year in particular, part of the winter term was that the students were able to design set pieces, and so they made mini models, and we kind of grabbed different pieces of each of those models and integrated into the show, and that was it just fueled the whole process.
Yeah, that's really cool.
They're involved in building sets, designing the sets. They have a say in how they feel in a moment. Does this blocking work for you? Meaning the movement about the stage. I think that sort of sets it apart. And I also think that, just like I said earlier, there's so much talent at this school. And I think part of it is they're exposed to this when they're in fourth grade.
Right.
And they fall in love with it. We have two kids that are at Walnut Hill right now, and
Yeah.
a kid that just signed with an agent, and a kid that's in an off-Broadway show. We're building a really incredible program here, and it starts with them.
Yeah.
So
Well, it starts with you, and
Well-
then leads into them, and then it,
Yeah.
carries on. That momentum carries,
Mm,
right? That's incredible.
Yeah.
Awesome. So speaking of your talent and your love for this, you're launching a new theater company.
mhm.
It's called the Event Theater Company, and you're developing a new one-man show.
Yep.
How did you come up with this idea? And tell me about this passion project.
Yeah, so the Event Theater Company is something that sort of has been in the works for the last couple years, and I think finally I'm kind of grabbing hold of it, and I want to. It's kind of come to me and revealed itself what I want it to be, and I want to sort of find different venues about Boston and perform shows that align with that venue. So whether it be doing Charlotte's Web in a barn, or doing Little Women in an old house or a museum, doing big dreams, doing a show at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum that has to do with art, like Inventing Van Gogh, or a play called Red, but also having a strong, kids program involved in it too.
Right.
So having it be multisensory, and I think that's kind of where that's sort of tumbling and evolving. I also live in this really rad building in Milton. It's the Walter Baker building. And I live with all artists. And it's this really cool, it's one of the oldest chocolate factories in the country, but this is their admin building. There's only 13 residents and there's 2 rehearsal spaces.
Uh-huh.
So it's funky, and you walk in and it's like out of a movie. You just hear music playing all the time, and everyone's hanging their works in the hallways. And so that's sort of going to be the home base for the rehearsals. And then we're going to scout out different venues about the city. But that's kind of my project now. I've always had a love for one-person shows. I worked with, so right before I left New York, I worked with someone that devised a one-man Titanic.
Wow.
So he took the entire film
Jeez. Yeah.
and cut it down a little bit, but he acted out all the different characters. And it ended up being New York Times top critic pick, and he's still doing the show even 10 years later, he's doing it now in LA, but it had a run in Edinburgh and it had a run in LA, but it had a run in Edinburgh and it had a run in New York. And we, in the little basement black box, devised this one-man show together, staying up all night trying to figure out how to do this. And it's had a successful run. It's still alive today. So I'm working with one of my good friends who's a stand-up comic in New York, and he's doing a show now that sort of aligns with his father and his relationship with his father and in sports. So that's what we're working on now. And
Very
there's
cool.
a musical element to it, and we're just kind of working it. But he's a really cool guy, and hoping to bring it to Edinburgh.
Very
It's finished, yeah.
amazing.
hmm
So what keeps your creative spark alive? What are things that get you excited?
I have built a lifestyle that's creative. I live and breathe it, and I'm really grateful for that. I do a lot of acting outside of school, and that kind of keeps me motivated because I also get to see things from the kids' perspective. How do they feel when they perhaps don't get the role that they want? How does that feel, and how can I talk to them about it and say, you know what, the ensemble is a huge part of a show. It's there aren't any small actors. We're all part of this one thing.
Yeah.
Just like a sport, it's a team.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, but it also, I get to see how other directors work, and I get to kind of steal things when I can and say, okay, that works for them. Maybe I can try it with the kids, and that keeps my it's professional development.
Yeah.
It keeps that muscle working. So
Love it.
mhm.
Tell me about a moment at Derby that reminded you of why you love this work.
There's so many. I think of a student when I first started. His name was James. He was part of the Aladdin production, the 6th grade show. You know, everyone has to be not has to, is lucky enough to be involved in it, right?
Good, correct. Yep.
Yes. I think he started to fall in love with it a little bit. Then he, big sports guy, like was kind of resistant to it at first, but then started to fall in love with it. And then we did Much Ado About Nothing, which is a Shakespeare piece. It's really, his part was really deep. And he did an incredible job with that. And I saw him just completely blossom and fall in love with it. That was one of the highlights for me. COVID, I know we don't ever want to think about it again, but I think that was a really incredible time because we had to reinvent the wheel. We
Yep.
had to do everything on the screen, and we had to motivate the kids to want to show up. So I was working chops that I had never worked before, which was taking content from just the video screens and trying to piece together productions.
Yeah.
We had a full arts night where everyone banded together to make a full arts night happen on Zoom.
So cool.
So the bands were playing, and we had video clips, and we had mini shows. And I think those are the moments when I see the community come together in support of this program. Those are the moments that make me want to stay. And it's seeing a kid who feels as though they didn't have a place, find a place in the theater, and find a safe space. So I think that's probably, it's kind of a blanket statement, but there's too many to say, you
Yeah.
know?
I think one of the highlights that I have seen in my time here was Cole Pantaleo last year playing Ursula
Oh, yeah.
and singing Poor Unfortunate Soul, like killing it. That to me is a kid that obviously loves acting,
hmm
put in a role that maybe traditionally he wouldn't have played because of thinking outside the box.
hmm
And he just crushed it. I remember watching that being like, this kid can be a professional actor if he wanted to be. And that was my Derby theater moment where I was like, this is next level. It was an incredible performance.
That's another thing too. One thing that I'm really proud about with this program is that there is sort of this gender blind casting,
Mhm.
that a boy could play a girl role, like Luke Hansen played Mrs. White in Clue. And I think that was one thing that he said in his audition for Walnut Hill, and it was a huge turning point for him. They wanted to talk to him more about that. It's intriguing. And there are a lot of girls in Alice in Wonderland that are playing male roles, and those are the roles that they wanted to. I remember a student coming in that was female, and she said, I want to play the Beast in Beauty and the Beast. So there's this culture that's happening now where there's a lot of gender blind casting. And part of it is the student that does the work, the student that comes in prepared, the student that's doing the after school programs and trying their best to hone their skills, they deserve the role,
Yep.
you know? So, and Cole was one of those people. He said, I want to play Ursula. This is what I want to do. And he was fabulous in it. So.
Fabulous. And a
Mhm.
credit to you, right? That he felt comfortable enough to step out of his comfort zone and take on an incredibly big role as Ursula. It was
Yeah.
great. What do you hope students carry with them long after they leave Derby and your stage?
Confidence in themselves, a self-knowing, knowing that what they bring to the table is valuable and important.
I'll stop you there because I talked to Henry Stevens just a couple days ago,
Yeah,
and I asked him about the things that he learned through the theater program.
yeah.
Confidence was his number one thing, right? He was like this scared little sixth grade boy, tried out for the sixth grade play, and all of a sudden he was Frederick in Pirates of the Penzance.
Mhm.
And that those moments with you built his confidence. And by eighth grade, he's one of our leaders that's involved in The Little Mermaid as King Triton and Beauty and the Beast in seventh grade. The confidence that you instilled in him was clearly evident. And then he jumps on my podcast, thousands of listeners.
Yeah,
And he didn't even flinch because he was confident. It was really cool to hear.
that's choking me up a little bit.
Yeah, good. It should.
Yeah, I have the chills. Yeah,
Very cool.
He's a really cool guy. So, yeah, I think that's a huge piece. And empathy. I think to be a good actor, you need to empathize with the character that you're playing. You need to understand them. You need to understand their pain and their joy and everything. So you that translates into life. And then when you're on stage, you need to connect with your scene partners. Those are the people that you have with you. You're trying to create a reality, and you really need to be working. You're creating a reality in front of an audience of people.
Yeah.
So it's this really cool balance of sharing and empathy and being with one another. So I hope that kind of carries through.
Very cool. Last question. I
Mhm.
know you're a Derby Difference podcast listener, so you know what's
Yeah.
coming. What does the Derby Difference mean to you?
I think the Derby difference for me is exactly what we just talked about. Giving our students confidence to go into the world and be their most authentic self with pride. And so I think that's probably what it means to me.
Amazing. Very good. Well, thank you so much, Shawn, for being here. That brings down the curtain of this episode of The Derby Difference. A huge thank you to Shawn Verrier for sharing his extraordinary journey and reminding us how powerful storytelling, imagination, and performance can be. From the stages of New York to Derby's theater lights, Shawn has found a way to turn his passion into purpose, helping students find their voice, their confidence, and their creativity along the way. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe for more stories from people who bring the Derby Difference to life every single day. Until next time.